All the time, people ask me what games I've picked up recently and I never have an answer. For the most part, I stopped buying a whole lot of games this year for two reasons. The first being the fact that it's not really within my budget to begin with. If I see a really good deal, I'll likely jump on it, but that brings me to reason two. I just haven't seen anything I wanted to pick up. There are no more deals to be found in my case, and even if there is, they're certainly not local to me, so by the time I add on shipping costs, it's not much of a good deal anymore. However, all the way back in May, about 5 months ago, I saw a listing on a Facebook buy and sell page. This guy local to me who I'd bought off before was selling off his entire collection, and this guy had a lot of stuff. I'd seen it all before on previous visits, but the problem was that I could just never get around to his place to have a dig through everything. Every time I'd find the time to go over, something would come up and I'd just miss out, unfortunately. Fast forward to a few days ago when I'm recording this, I see his ad again and he's only got 25% of his stock left, so I grabbed my camera and made it a priority to get over there. For 25% of a collection, he still had easily 10, 20 times what I have, and of a much larger variety. So I basically started digging, which is something I rarely get the chance to do these days. First thing I took a look at was the Atari 2600 gear. This stuff is great to collect, it's generally cheaper, and I find it just so interesting. Considering my collection is still in its early days, I'm still after a lot of pretty common stuff. Also on my hit list is to expand the NES and SNES games. I've got roughly 20 games between the two systems. That's pretty weak, honestly. The problem with these consoles and generally anything Nintendo is that it goes for the price of gold, so I find myself staying away from the brand entirely. On the table here, there is just a whole bunch of sports titles and nothing that really interests me. When I go shopping like this, I'm never really looking for anything in particular, just whatever catches my eyes. Like this here, iToy Pom Pom Party. I've wanted to play this game for years and I finally got the chance when a fan of the channel, Thomas, donated some games a little while back. Unfortunately, he sent this game without the pom-poms, so it actually didn't work to my surprise, ruining what could have been the only redeeming factor of a cancelled gameplay video. So of course, I had to pick these up. Over here, I found a heap of boxed Game Boy and Game Boy Advance games. It's something I don't really collect at this stage, and these were just mainly some very below average titles like The Incredibles on GBA, mixed in with things like Wario Land. Under this was a large box still filled to the brim with NES titles. Again, I'm still after a lot of common stuff like Snake Rattle and Roll, Golf, and Tecmo World Wrestling, but I also managed to snag Bubble Bobble at the very bottom. There wasn't a price on it, so I put it in my pile just to see what happens. There are a lot of other games in there that I would have loved to get my hands on, but maybe some other time. The seller also grabbed another large crate of boxed Nintendo titles. Yeah, I try to stay away from that, it just gets too expensive and I like my smaller homemade boxes. Although I did grab WWF WrestleMania on NES with the manual. One thing I really enjoy collecting is wrestling games. I'd like to try and own all of them one day. And I enjoy exploring the limited tech alternatives to the modern games that got me into the shit in the first place. So while digging through a pile of loose handheld carts, I also pulled WWF Raw for Game Boy. Other than that, there wasn't a whole lot that really interested me here. By this point, I'd done a full lap around the table in the centre of the room, which was totally covered in games of all systems, old Pac-Man units and all sorts of random stuff that I'd never even heard of. This thing here is one of the early portable consoles. Yeah, I can tell. There was also a Mega CD console that I'd had my eye on, but considering that it was boxed with all of the hookups, instructions and Mega Drive console, I passed on that pretty quick. This is when my eye caught a box filled with Tiger handheld games. I have no interest in these whatsoever, aside from the Crash Bandicoot game. But come on, it must be in here, right? At the very bottom? Nope, just an N64 Rumble Pack. I mean, sure, why not? I could use a little more rumble in my 64 experience. Now I was just digging through everything to see if I could find anything all that interesting. I had a look at some PS1, 2 and 360 titles, but the only things I was even remotely interested in didn't have the manuals. I'm sure I could find them elsewhere, but I'm just too lazy. I also found a pile of N-Gage titles that appeared to be sealed. I don't think it was a factory seal, although I wouldn't know. The N-Gage, while a massive joke, is a portable I'd like to get a hold of one day. From what I've seen, the games are generally pretty cheap, and it's an interesting piece of gaming history, especially for the handheld market. Like I said, there is a lot of stuff here I'd love to get a hold of sometime, but it's just not justifiable at the current time. I saw several boxed and unboxed Atari Lynx consoles, another somewhat obscure portable. Everywhere I tried to look, I found myself having to move the things out of the way. Under all of this rubbish is when I found something I'm really excited about, a piece of grey plastic. It's the mouse pad for Mario Paint on Super Nintendo, and pretty soon we'd found the mouse too, as well as a copy of the game. I've always wanted this, but I told myself I'd only ever pick it up if it had the mouse and mouse pad. Otherwise I don't see the point, honestly. So by now, I was digging through boxes and parts of the room I'd already scanned over, but I'm glad I did, as I found Vanguard on Atari, a classic game with a classic commercial. I also noticed some Game Boy cameras, another item I've always wanted. I found the printer too, just on its own in amongst all the debris. Apparently he did have the paper and necessary cords, but I really wasn't interested. While I was there anyway. I bet I'll regret that down the line. So with all of that loot, it was time to pay the damages. Considering the individual prices of what each item goes for on eBay, and the fact that there is literally nothing else worth getting local to me, I feel like I got a fair deal, and I'm happy with my purchase. The biggest score was honestly Bubble Bobble on NES. I've seen the game go for $40, $50 on eBay, and I've seen people try to sell it for a much higher price everywhere else. An amazing game for 15 bucks, I'm fine with that, and I picked up items I know I'll actually enjoy, or at least get something else out of, so it was certainly a successful day. This is my entire haul, and now it's time to figure out how the hell to get all of this stuff onto the shelf. I realised here that I actually got a game I already owned, Breakout. The one I just picked up looks much better, so I'll replace it, no harm done. I must say, it felt really good getting the chance to go out and have a dig through a heap of games. I was lucky I saw plenty of items I was interested in, really. But even if I didn't, I still find it so fun and interesting looking through all of this stuff and have discussions about all the history surrounding it. It's probably the reason I regret getting into video game collecting so late. I just never get the chance to do so. But with that, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, be sure to leave a like, subscribe, share the video, and keep an eye out for some videos in the near future of me testing all of this crap. I'm Square Eyed Jack, and have a great fucking day. Thanks for watching.